Hello and welcome to Pathological Demand Avoidance Syndrome Workshop Module 4. And hopefully you will have seen the rest of the workshops 1, 2 and 3, so you'll know where we are. So my name is Andrew and I'll tell you a little bit about myself, how to get in touch with me. My name is Andrew Whitehouse. You can contact me at People First Education, www.peoplefirsteducation.com. You can email me, Andrew at peoplefirsteducation.com. Facebook, Andrew Whitehouse at People First Education. You can also LinkedIn me, Andrew Whitehouse. It's the Andrew Whitehouse with all the letters after his name, if you're looking for that. And you can also get in touch with me at Instagram and Twitter at Andrew W SEN. Andrew W, as in what your mum used to write on the back of your shirts, and SEN. I'm a TEDx speaker. I delivered a TEDx from Disability to Superpowers. You can find that on TED.com or on YouTube. Seems to be easier to find on YouTube. I'm a Bamford lecturer for the British Academy of Audiology, and I delivered a workshop or a keynote for them called Creating Autism-Friendly Audiology Clinics. I'm also a hearing ambassador, and I'm a forensic special education needs and disability consultant, and that means I supply expert witness work in the courts in SEND, special educational needs and disability court cases. I'm a short course provider for the Bishop Grosseteste University and the University of Lincoln, and many other places. I also, most of my work, it's worth knowing, is however training, workshops and keynote speeches at conferences. But by far the thing I do more than anything else is I'm boots on the ground working to help make things better for learners with a range of neurological diversities. So how the modules have been written and how they work are two different things. The modules were split when I first put the idea together into four headings: module 1, 2, 3 and 4, and they were supposed to cover the list that you can see in front of you on the screen. However, when I came to deliver it, these things, they're so, I'm getting my fingers out now, entwined with one another, that in actual fact I had to really sort of mix it up a bit. So we're going to cover what is pathological demand avoidance syndrome, what is ASD, who's affected by PDA, the child is the learner, the key features of PDA, where PDA meets the triad of impairments, or the 4 areas of diversity as I now call it, and parties with ADHD. That's the connections between the two. Control, which is the major guiding influence in PDA, how to help, and then make a plan. We've actually been doing that all the way along as we've been going along, and they really have been mixed in. So if you've picked this one up and said, I'm going to look at module 4 because that's got something in there that I would like to find out about, I would suggest start at number 1 and watch them as a 4-part series. Module 4, I would say, is a little bit shorter than the first 3. So I would say you're probably looking at about 4.5, 5 hours if you were to watch all of them and do all the directed tasks that are part of them. So so there we go. Let's really kick in now. So you should have, if you've done what I've just asked you to do, you should be able to answer this question if you've done the first few modules. If you can't answer this question, we're back to the same thing again. I would strongly recommend that you go and look through the previous modules. So we'll pause for a bit. Make sure you've got a hot coffee in front of you, and I want you to put together 10 things you can do to prepare the child with PDA for a trip to a stately home. Now, when you're putting that information together, although PDA is a type of autism, I don't want those standard autism type answers. So visual timetable, social story, all those things, yeah? That's for classic autism. We're talking specific PDA here. And the other thing I want you to know is that that PDA is all about control, And so they're things to make that child feel in control. So I'm going to stop now. I'm going to pause now, and we'll meet up in a bit when you've got 10 things you can do to prepare the child for a trip to a stately home. See you in a bit. Welcome back. Okay, 10 things you can prepare the child with PDA for a trip to a stately home. So let's hope that I've picked up on, I'm not going to do 10, because obviously that might take rather too long. But let's hope that I've got some of the ones that that you've picked up on. So let me think now. Let the child help organise the trip. So the child could look at transport. They could get involved with the transport with you in some small way, involve themselves in booking the transport. They could look at helping other learners to accept this trip and to be able to work around this trip. So have we got children who do need social stories and visual timetables and that sort of thing? What is the seating plan going to be like on the coach? How many coaches are you going to need? What activities are we going to do in what order? Who's going to look after the lunches? Who's going to look after where are we going to put coats and things like that if it's a hot day? The coach might have to go somewhere. Are we going to be eating inside, outside? Are we going to have groupings? Who's going to be in the groupings? Could you help organise that? Lots and lots of things. Most important thing is putting that child in control. The control element of this is anxiety-led control. So the thing you need to be remembering is that by putting them in control, you're taking anxiety out of the picture for them and you're helping them out. So it's really important things to remember there. So 10 things you can do must really be around control. Are you going to be the photographer? Are you going to, make sure that everyone's got their lunches on time? Maybe you're going to time the activities so that we know when we've got to finish and move on to the next thing. Lots and lots and lots of things like that. So 10 things you can do to prepare the child with PDA for a trip to a stately home. If you didn't get 10, maybe at the end, when we look at our final directed task of PDA, maybe you could have a little work on it then. Okay, just do something. I have to organise my timer here because these workshops are timed. Okay. We need to look at rules. Rules, now, you would think that in some ways rules with PDA are something they don't enjoy. Well, to a certain extent they don't. I mean, it's demand avoidance. A rule is a demand. They might want to avoid that demand. But what we have to consider is that on the other side of things, these children are autistic. PDA is a type of autism, and therefore we might want to put rules in place to help them with their comfort zone. And so there is a certain element of balance in there, that what you gain from one thing you might lose from the other. But I would say if they are presented well and in a friendly, non-personalised demand manner, then I think you can probably benefit quite a lot from having rules with children with PDA. But what we do know is if they're not reminded of them, then they do forget them. And another thing, whilst I'm mentioning there, slightly off that point, but important to mention, is if you have rules, you must stick to the rules. So, for example, if you say to your own child, when you go to bed, mobile phones go in the kitchen all night. And one particular night, you think, oh, it'll be all right. Just this once, it'll be okay. You're not helping them. And this is very much the case with children with autism and PDA. You can discuss rules on a regular basis. So really, there's got to be sort of points in the year, in the week, and the month where you have to discuss rules. So you might be just to be going off to the swimming lesson with the school, getting on the bus, going swimming. That is a time to discuss the rules, because they do this every week, and just remind them that the rules are, when we go swimming, this, and this. That's an important one. The other time that you might want to discuss them is the beginning of a new school year. That might be the head teacher's conversation or the head of year's conversation. This is how we do things. Every term, we go, even on a daily basis, we're going into assembly, everybody remember. And if you do this, not only are you consolidating the fact that this is what we do, but it also reinforces the fact that these rules are important and that they really need to be observing these rules. And so the other thing you need to do is, as you know, people with PDA are autistic. Autistic people are very much visual. This is to do with extreme male brain theory. And so you want those rules posted in a place where they can see them and in a format they understand. I've seen some really interesting ones over the years. I've seen ones in early years foundation stage learning environments where they've got written rules. No more than 5 children in this tent. They can't read. So you have to think about it and say, is this in a not just a format they understand, is it in a place they can see, and is it somewhere that they can seek out if needed? So really important to think about how you actually promote the rules to children as well. Classroom rules should be sent home for parents to review with children. What are the benefits of this? Okay, I'm going to leave you to talk about that for a moment. Then we're going to come back. So if you pause now, we'll discuss this in a moment. Welcome back. So what are the benefits of this? The benefits of this are twofold, really. You may have very supportive parents who really want to help with the rules. If you share with the rules, they feel in the loop. Actually, if they feel in the loop, they are socially accepting of the school. You want the school to be socially accepted by the parents. And if they are socially accepting of the school, you're going to get the support you need. Well, the last thing you need is a battle, or worse still, as we've been talking about in previous workshops, is what we called the custard pie fight. We don't want, it's bad enough, you know, if you have them with the children, but to have a custard pie fight with the adults is much, much worse. So the benefit is that. Now that's of the supportive parents. Those parents who do not support, those parents who may not agree with your rules, you need to know that as well. You need to know where everyone stands in every situation, because then you know what you're working with, and knowledge is power. And so you need to do that, and that may lead you to have conversations with the family. Whether or not you agree with them or agree to disagree, that's fine. But to keep that dialogue going, because again, we don't want an us and them situation. So twofold benefits for letting children share rules at home. Personally, I think you'll find if rules are sensible and not overly dictatorial, that you will get the support of the parents 9 times out of 10. If so, communicating with other people, this is again down to the rigid thinking, a lack of flexible thought. If home and school rules are shared, they can be reinforced in other environments. So if you have set rules and parents or caregivers agree with those rules, they may decide to enforce those rules at home. And so that, you know, that gives those children that consistency that they crave for so much, but also that they might send the rules home, and it might just be that the parents go through these rules and see how we enact them. I would actively encourage that with parents, to go through the rules with children and review it and say, well, how are you going to put that in place at school? Parents should let school know what rules they adhere to at home. So if we've got expectations at home, we want to share that with the school. Our expectations need to be shared with the school. So if you've got parents who've got certain rules in the home, let me think of one. No shoes in the house, no shoes in the front room. That might be something you might consider for the classroom, that we slip into our pumps, plimsolls, or PE shoes or something like that in the school. It's a really rubbish example, but you know what I'm trying to do. You know the message I'm trying to get across to you. Review what the rules are, where they are displayed, consequences for not following or following the rules, and who to go with questions about the rules. If you find that a rule is confusing, or you know, you're not sure it applies for you, you need to know who you need to ask about that. You're going to get in more trouble for making your own decision as a child than you are for investigating what's the right thing to do. So we need to know about that. We need to know what consequences there are. And I suppose really, I'm forgetting myself here. What I should say as well is what benefits and rewards there are for being a sort of person that sticks to the rules and that doesn't, you know, doesn't violate too many rules in school. And so we need to know about the benefits and the downside. We need to pick our battles. Pushing a child to obey demands may lead to anxiety and meltdown. So I would again recommend you check out the autism workshop on meltdowns. That would be really important. But I would also say, you know, it's very much about picking your battles, and you know, you've got to know when you are going to be flexible, what is important, what is less important, and how you're going to make those decisions. So sometimes it's easy just to let it go. Some things just get let go because we may be making a demand that's not as important. It's really knowing when to tell the difference. So pushing a child to obey demands may lead to anxiety and, of course, meltdowns. And we discuss meltdowns, you know, very much like an anxiety attack, a panic attack, because you're, again, the phrase that keeps coming, the sentence that keeps coming up is anxiety-led need to be in control. Anxiety-led need control. And so, you know, we don't want to be pushing too far on that. I'd like to look at sensory differences. Sensory in autism is the most important consideration. Sensory underpins absolutely everything. So I would like you to make sure that the sensory environment and the sensory considerations are done before absolutely everything else. If you've not done sensory, you can't deal with communication. You can't deal with social and emotional understanding, and you can't deal with the lack of flexible thought. Sensory comes first. Excuse me, don't know where my mind's at. So, think about how your classroom is set up. Very, very important to consider how your classroom is set up. So, I'm very keen on a U-shaped classroom facing the board, but I'm also very aware that some things need to be done as group activities, and so that tables are movable. But I like a U-shaped classroom. It minimises the number of people that you can be disturbed by. It's very much a numbers game, teaching, and also it minimises the distractions, because you've got a person there and a person there, or if you're on one of the ends, you might just have a person there, and so that helps with that sort of thing. You want to be thinking about doors, windows, noises from other classrooms, disturbances. I've told you in one of the other workshops, if you've not seen it yet, I'm sure you will, where I went in to do an observation in a class. Right next to the interactive whiteboard was a window, and outside was a tree, and in the tree was squirrels. Okay, and clearly, who's more interesting? Squirrel teacher, squirrels every time, right? And so that was again hugely important to consider. That all we needed to do in that situation was pull a blind down, yeah. And actually, we could open it when we want to watch the squirrels. Squirrels are fun. Let's have a look at them, but not all the time. Doorways where there's a constant thoroughfare. So you might have a doorway where it might be near the reception area of the school, where people are walking past all the time. You might have a window where people are always outside. I remember trying to deliver a course in the National College in Nottingham, and there was a rather interesting gentleman with a beard outside the window drinking cider, wanting to make friends with all the people inside. You cannot deliver training under those circumstances. There is no way I'm going to be anywhere near as much fun as the man with the bottle of cider. And so you've got to think about What are you doing to avoid that? And again, if you've got windows, like I said, you might be able to close the blinds. There's lots of things you can do. So consider how your classroom is set up. That's an absolute first. And then secondly, where are you going to put that child in that classroom? So are you going to pair them up with a peer mentor? Are you going to have them near you so that you can keep a very pleasant and non-invasive eye on that child and what they're doing? Are you going to group them with children that they could peer mentor? Lots of things to consider and lots of decisions to make. But set up the classroom is one of the biggest sensory issues that you need to consider. And one more thing, I need to talk about a child that I work with. He asked if he was ADHD. So he's not a PDA child, but the story is equally as important. He was ADHD, and what he did was he asked if it was okay if he could go and sit over by the sink on his own, because he was fed up of being disturbed by people and getting into trouble. So again, things you can do. Oh, and in that particular case, I have to say, the teacher, I remember speaking to the teacher, she said, I feel sorry for him sitting over there on his own. I said, no, don't feel sorry for him. Don't feel sorry for him. It's what he wants. This is keeping him out of trouble. He's fed up with being in trouble. You're helping him. So that's, one man's pudding is another person's poison, really. It was really, really helping him out, but the teacher was worried for his well-being. Okay, quick sip of my coffee. It's been quite a big task putting this PDA course together. I've been teaching PDA for a long time. Putting these modules has been a very big task, but I'm hoping you're getting the best from it. Sensory differences, you need to think about energy, fine motor energy. If you're a learner with PDA, strategic response to difficult situations is to behave physically. Don't try and stop them. Yeah, now obviously you don't want to get hurt, but what I'm saying is get a safe and appropriate way for them to use their energy. And how can you do that? Well, you may have a trampoline. You may have a field that they can run around in. You may have a climbing wall. Obviously, that would need all the protective equipment. We know this, and safety equipment. Something as simple as a stress ball, fiddlies, blue tack, something to cuddle. I think I need something to cuddle. I'm going to bring Comfort Cat out. You all know Comfort Cat. Something to fiddle with. Fiddlies can be very simple. It could be something like blue tack. It could just be something I've got a watch with buttons on here. Could be anything. Keeping it simple, but very, very effective. Stopping them doing what they need isn't helpful. Facilitating them other ways to do what they need is helpful. Finding alternatives that meet their needs. So blue tack, I'll finish on blue tack because blue tack is a really, really popular one. Lots of children like blue tack, and they do quite creative things with them. One of the things I don't like about the use of blue tack is if a child is using blue tack and a teacher or a member of staff has said it's okay and another member of staff comes and takes it off them, then we're not preaching consistency, and then we're being unhelpful to the child and making it more difficult for them. So just remember, find out before you take something off a child or whatever, find out first, are they supposed to have it? Why have you got that? Why are you using that? Oh, yeah, Mrs. Smith said, okay, thank you. And then you can go and check with Mrs. Smith. Okay. And then, we need to think about these strategies for energy, for gross motor. If they need to take a break, take a short walk, push on a wall. That's a great one. The wall will always win. Okay. Not usually a lot of damage done here. It can happen, but pushing on a wall, bouncing on a trampoline, positive ways to use energy while giving children time to review the situation and thinking about an appropriate response, giving them time to think through the situation. And so, again, lots of things you can do there. I can remember my youngest son, he used to go on the trampoline on a space hopper. Slightly unsafe. You'd have some explaining to do if they got hurt, but that was his way of doing things. Okay, moving along. Environmental considerations. So what are you aiming for in environmental considerations? I'll tell you what you're aiming for. You're aiming for a place where they're comfortable enough to tolerate and maybe even later engage with learning tasks, that the child is kept on task as much as possible, and ensuring that learning is absorbed, ensuring there's minimal disruption to others. Let's take those one at a time. So comfortable enough to tolerate and later engage with learning tasks. I've talked to you about school refusers. I think that was in module 3 of PDA. Could have been 2. But one of the things I talk about is, with PDA particularly, done it a few times now, is to get the child to engage with the environment before you ask them to engage with learning. And so what you want from them is to be happy in that place. Now, I've done this on a number of occasions. The 2 most recent times, in 2 different schools, the one school supported it and the one school didn't. And so in the school that supported it, I said, look, we just want 10 minutes of learning at each lesson, or 15 minutes in the room, 5 minutes of learning. I can't remember the exact, but just get them engaging, being in the school, being happy with the environment, and feeling not under too much pressure and not having any personalised demands. And that went on for quite a long time, where we were slightly upping the game ever so as we went along. Went on for quite a long time, but in the end, he settled. Now, ultimately, he did go to a different school, but it did help him settle. Another place where I did exactly the same thing, it was under huge pressure to get this moving quickly from the school leadership, and because we didn't give it the time it needed, it didn't work for this child. And so what you've got to remember is these things do take time. You're talking about huge neurological diversities here, and you can't rush these things. So you've got to have a little bit of patience. So you want to keep the child on task as much as is possible, but it's finding out what is possible for that child and what is less than possible. Ensuring that learning is absorbed. Once you've got them involved in that, absolutely, and you want learning to be good. Biggest cause of challenging behaviour in any school, any classroom, is poor standard of teaching. Not poor standard of teachers. There are very few of those out there, but every teacher, including myself, as a trainer and when I was a teacher, has the bad day. And I would say to you that in my case, I know when I've delivered good work. I know when I've not delivered such good work, and the response from the attendees or the pupils have always been less positive than before. And with children, their natural reaction is to present with challenging behaviour, and ensure there's minimal disruption to others. You want to engage that person in a way that meets their needs, that stops them from presenting with challenging behaviour. So things you can do to help: you can have flexible working environments, so novelty, choice, and a safe place. So let's talk about that. If they want to sit outside, or I was in a school in the south of England, and they had little tables and chairs outside the classroom where you're in a safe environment, but you were out of the classroom. You could be seen by others, but you could sit and do your work, and it felt quite grown up to be sitting in these little sort of bistro type tables they were. So yeah, novelty, choice. Where would you like to sit? What would you? This is depersonalising demands. In fact, it's taking demands completely out of the picture and giving them choices. Identify any sensory issues that they may be having. They may not have the ability to tell you what those sensory issues are. So you might have to identify them for them. And you might just literally go down the 5 senses and going, is there a visual problem here? Is there a tactile problem here? Is there an auditory problem here? And so, does it smell? And literally go through all those things for them. Use visual aids, imagery, role play, and depersonalised demands. Notice boards are great for depersonalising demands. Can all of us please, It's a great opening line for depersonalised demand. And make sure the staff, the other children and the parents are all aware of what you're doing and how you're doing it. Go back to visual aids. Do I dare say visual timetables again? I do feel myself cringing hearing myself say it, but they work. They absolutely work. And role play for young people with PDA is another absolute winner. We might want to look at some choices. Would you like to get ready now or later? That's quite a good one, isn't it? Giving them choices. What you're saying is you need to get ready, but we're saying you can make the decision when. I've made a list of activities. Would you like to choose one? Depersonalising demands, de-escalating the possibility of a demand-led reaction, and so, and giving them choice. I've brought the sandwiches through. Would you like to eat them in the classroom or the hall? Now, I've done one similar to this before, and I added to it, I've brought the sandwiches through. Would you like to eat them in the classroom, the hall, or somewhere else? Because you don't want to, you're always second guessing with PDA. And so you don't want to be saying, this is how you do it. You don't want to be pushing, even if it's two choices, you're pushing your ideas. So you don't want to be doing that. But what you do want to be doing is giving them the option to engage. And that's, again, from the previous slide, isn't it? Control your voice. Control your voice. Try to make your voice interesting. Hopefully, I've been doing that for the last, I think, 36 one-hour workshops. Control your voice, okay? Make your voice interesting. Nobody enjoys a high-pitched voice. Nobody enjoys it when it's getting higher and higher and higher in pitch. We don't want you speaking fast. So a lot of work goes into these workshops in making sure that it's the right amount of words on a slide, that I'm not doing death by PowerPoint, and I'm not just reading the words out. Sometimes I am, and I hope most of the time I'm not. People getting breathless. Again, it's distracting from what they're saying. Being hesitant or slow. Really, really slow. People don't like it. I've got there's someone doing some work for me at the moment, and not in the world of education, in my personal life, and he's on the phone talking to me like this, and I've got ADHD and I can't be doing with this, and so I'm there willing him to be more fast. Making mistakes in speech, long rambling explanations, too much technical vocabulary. If you've got technical vocabulary, break it down into a way that people understand. Too many ums and ers, and the monotonous voice. The monotonous voice, again, people don't like it. You've also got to control your body, and your body language is hugely important again, because body language has a huge effect on classroom management and how children respond to you in the classroom. So there's a lot of things that we need to look at with body language. One of which is we don't want to look bored. So you've got to look interested. Excitement is contagious. And so if children will see, if you're excited, they will get excited. So avoid having your arms crossed. I do that a lot when I'm sitting down. Backed against the wall. Yeah, that suggests fear. Slumping over, biting your lip, chewing, nervous movements, not moving at all. You've got to take central stage in that classroom, because you're in control of what's going on in that room. One of the major things you must do is you must always be in there before the children arrive, and you must always be in there once they've left, for so many reasons. Majorly, if you've marked your position in that classroom, once the children come in, you haven't got to calm them down again. If you've brought them in a calming attitude because you're already in the room, you haven't got to do that a second time. And afterwards, if something's left behind or something's missing, you just want to be there. End of the day, 3:30, instead of, you know, if you're one of those that likes to grab a coffee straight away, just wait 5 minutes for those children that may need to come back. Okay. This is from a book called Let Me Tell You About My PDA. I really enjoy this. Now, there's things here, there's quite a lot in these quotes. Another thing that helps me is if I know what is happening. I don't like routines to get boring, but I do like to know what to expect. I like it when my day is explained, so I'm prepared for any changes or choices in the day. When my children were little, I used to take them camping, caravanning later. We started camping and we had a lovely trailer tent and then a caravan. And in those camping trips, we had routines in the morning. So I would go for my shower, come back, and then someone else would go for their shower, and maybe the girls would go and the boys would go, and so people would get ready, you would eat in a certain order, and it was a routine. But the routine wasn't necessarily boring, because the routine was something you did to get out efficiently and quickly in order to have a day out on and wherever you are, at the seaside or somewhere like that. But the point is that this person says, I don't like routines to get boring, but I like to know what to expect. And of course, I think that is that a good example of that routines should not be boring, but they should prepare you for the day, and they are important. If there is something I can't do, this is from the same text, on that day I can put it in the on pause folder, and I either do it later on another day. I like choosing from that folder. Well, I saw this and I thought, what a great idea, an on pause folder, we'll take that. And so what I did was I said to the child, anything you can't do, stick it in this folder, we'll look at it later. What happened? Well, you know what happened. Nothing got done. Everything went in the folder. So then I said, okay, we'll do this slightly different. Let's say, for example, you only allowed 3 things in the on pause folder. Okay? So they put their 3 things in, and those 3 things got promptly forgotten, and again, no, total waste of time, nothing got done. And so finally what I said was, okay, let's put these 3 things in the folder and let's put 7 days on them. So you've got 7 days to complete these. That worked. So what I'm trying to tell you as well is, if you are lifting things from other people, you might decide to say, right, okay, I'm gonna use this. Yeah, I'm gonna have a go at this strategy, but what I don't want to do is absolutely rely on it working, because it might not work. And so you've always got to adapt these things. When I was a teacher, there was a thing out there. There were 2 things that I thought would save me, but they never did. One was a book called 100 Literacy Hours, and the other one was called 100 Numeracy Hours. And I don't mind admitting to you there, they didn't work. And the other one was a website that from a place called the Hamilton Trust, where you could download your planning on a Sunday night. And again, it didn't work, because the person who wrote that didn't know your class. There's another quote on there. Some days I'm fine and you wouldn't think I was any different from the other children. That disturbs me. Just because you've got PDA doesn't mean you're not fine. I'm fine. I'm ADHD, but I'm fine. And so, you know, it is fine to be PDA. It is it is a diversity, and yes, and it is okay to be slightly different from the other children. So there we go. And the final question, I think I've answered that for you. How to help. You've got to choose your priorities carefully and collaboratively. Collaboratively. Have the conversation with the child. How important is this? Make your starting point and aim to understand the behaviour before you challenge it. If you're planning to challenge challenging behaviour, ask yourself, all behaviour is communication. The children that need the most love ask for it in the most unloving ways. What is the point behind this behaviour? What are they trying to tell me? Because if you can find that out, then you can deal with all the other stuff. And so make your starting point and aim to understand the behaviour. Be less direct when you ask for something to be done. This is a good one. I wish there was someone who could help me with this. It's going to go two ways, right? But you help me now. That's only going to go one way with a demand avoidance. So I wish there was someone who can help me. Oh, I can help you. Ofsted says that all children have to be tested on this. Not me. Look, we're all in the same boat. Ofsted won it. We can get through this, and then we'll... Okay, we wouldn't put it quite like that, but you know what I'm trying to say. That we're depersonalising demands. It's not coming from me. It's coming from somewhere else. Be flexible in your approach. You need to allow opportunities for alternative ways of doing things that preserve the priority goal, but offer flexibility regarding the details. I can remember going to a parents' evening and being told that my now much older daughter, teenage daughter, she how difficult she was. And the teacher said, you know, they gave them this task and everyone got a sheet of A4 paper and they all had it portrait except for her, who was landscape. And I thought, how wonderful, how absolutely wonderful. And what I'm trying to say here is that, you know, flexibility regarding the details. Did she come out with anything good? Did she have any good ideas? Maybe you didn't explain it right to her. But I just have this lovely vision of this horizontal in amongst all those verticals. Okay. Talk honestly, often and openly to each other. Keep up to date about the most important things to the child and the most important things for the child. So me and same daughter went to the Harry Potter History of Magic. This was an exhibition at the British Library in London. And it was wonderful. We had a really lovely time. And when we finished the exhibition, we came out and there was a pop-up Harry Potter shop. By golly, it was expensive. It had some really expensive things in there. A little satchel like this, you know. £1 million it was. Okay, but it felt like it anyway. And you know those little chocolate coins you get from Starbucks, about 70 pence, big chocolate coins. They had Harry Potter ones there. £4.50. And I'm there and I'm looking at the price of these and my daughter's going, Dad, no, please don't do it. And I have to say something because it's the dad thing in me. So I went up to the counter and I said to the guy, I said, £4.50. Are you joking? Really? What is this? You know, and of course, the best way to deal with a person like me is to agree with them. Yes, he said, absolutely. Isn't it terrible? I said, yes, it is. And of course, I'm completely deflated then. And he said to me, he said, we have parents come back to the shop wanting their money back when they realise what their child has paid for this thing. He said, and I always give it to them. He said, you know, because he said, I don't really like that they've paid that much. And I suppose the point is there that the most important thing to that child is the Harry Potter chocolate. And the most important thing for that child is they get value for money on their little trip to London with their £5 in their pocket. We need to reduce anxiety, physical exercise, fantastic, yes please. A distraction, yes please. You know, physical exercise, wonderful in a big or small way. May well be that going for a nice long walk when you've got things on your mind, having a game of sport if you're sporting, if you've got sporting interests, absolutely. Engage in your special interests, whether it be Lego, whether it be 3D printing, whatever it is, engage with those things because they're important and they really help you reduce anxiety. Promote emotional well-being. Use examples from TV books that they like and games to discuss emotions. So there's Captain Kirk, probably the bravest hero in all of history, and he's there at the bridge of the Enterprise. How does the captain feel today? And you might say frightened or astonished or shocked or silly. I don't know. But if that's your special interest, that's that child. If that child loves Star Trek, that's the way in with that child. And that's how we can do it, is we've got a picture of Captain Kirk. And I think I told you about the one James Bond is lying on the bench and the laser beam is coming up between his legs. How does James feel? Frightened. Keep it personal, keep it creative. We want novelty. I've told you over all 4 of these modules, I will tell you again, role play and drama really are great with children with PDA. It's one thing they really don't have in common with other forms of autism. Keep it interactive. Remember, there are no limits. Use your imagination. The limits are limitless. Try it. If you've got a good idea, try it out. See what happens. Be confident. Be clear. Be clear, but don't be bossy. Stay flexible about the things that are open for negotiation and be confident about the things that are not open for negotiation. Absolutely. You know, pick your battles. I've said this all the way along through all 4 modules, but it's hugely important. Pick your battles. Be confident about how things are not open for negotiation and flexible about things that are. Give time and give space to understand what you've said and get used to the idea of cooperating. I've told you this before as well, but I'll tell you again. If you've asked them to do something and they've said no, instead of engaging with the custard pie fight, walk away. They might do it. They might just do it. Do you know what? I've seen it happen so many times. So walk away. Okay. Manage meltdowns calmly and safely. I've done a whole module on meltdowns. I'd love you to look at it. I think it's in the EYFS section, but believe me, it can apply to all. Stay calm yourself. We don't need 2 meltdowns, just 1. You don't have to put up with unreasonable or unpleasant behaviour, absolutely. But reacting emotionally yourself won't help anybody. We're back to the custard pie fight. We don't need another custard pie fight. You be there. You be the helpful one. You be the calm one. And you manage that meltdown calmly and safely. Think about overload. Consolidate the fact that they are valued and show good company. Consolidate the fact that they are valued and good company. Tell them about the amazing things about them. Not all the things they get wrong. Not all the times when they say no and are demand avoidant. Tell them about the amazing things. Show them that you see the best in them and help to teach them to make good friends. If you do it for them, they will see how it's done and they will model this behaviour, mirror this behaviour that you've modelled. Ask yourself a few questions. We'll kind of finish on these. Do people know where they can go when they're in difficulty? Are these places or people suitable to their individual needs? I've recently been working in a school where it was fascinating because what had happened was that there was a child who was suffering extreme anxiety, absolutely, really very disturbing anxiety. But on speaking to the head teacher hadn't seen this. This is because the child had got a massive affinity towards that head teacher. And so not only was there an understandable communication issue there, but that this head teacher, for as far as they were concerned, nothing was wrong. And I understand that. But, you know, that is the person suitable to their needs, isn't it? That is the on a plate you've been handed the go-to person. If that child has any issues, they get on so well with that head teacher, let them go to that head teacher. Oh, sorry. Do we need to look about how we include and prepare pupils for school trips or special events in school? I would say you probably do. And if you don't, you can always get better. There is always area for improvement. What are these people doing at lunchtime? Some of these kids really struggle with lunchtimes, break times. Is this a slot where they could be giving them more support or social opportunities? Lunchtime lounge was one that I used to be involved with. I really enjoyed. There's all sorts of things you can do to help those children that just really may not be in the mood or ready to deal with a playtime or a lunchtime. You know that I'm a big fan of this. If you've seen any of the work I do, can these learners be given a role or responsibility which could build their self-esteem, How are you enabling them to feel important in the school? Can we supply a system of emergency exits for learners whose anxiety levels have become unmanageable? Emergency exits, I'm not talking about doors, I'm really talking about a metaphor. I mean, it probably will involve a door. Have you an area they can go to? Is there somewhere they can go and calm down? Somewhere where they can gather themselves? If so, what do we need to do, and how can we support children at these times? You need to be thinking about that. You need to be thinking about special interests. You need to be thinking about any difficulties they may be having in playgrounds and places like that, and putting something in place. These are individual. I cannot tell you here and now. I could come into your school and tell you, but I can't tell you here. And finally, how effectively are we communicating and supporting families of children that with delicate emotional issues and difficult behaviour? We need that dialogue. The dialogue between home and school is essential. I want half-termly meetings, twice a half term. That's what I want. I also want that dialogue in the school, in staff meetings, to say, how is child X getting on? Who's overseeing wellbeing? Will this include wellbeing for the more complex group of pupils? And how do we train and supervise staff working in this way? Any training needs to be everybody. If you are the only person watching this workshop from your school, then that's great. I'm pleased to see you, but we need everybody watching it, because everybody needs to make that connection with what we need to do. One person is not enough. So, directed task. Directed task is very, very simple. You've been through 4 modules of this, and we got to the end. Well done. What I'd like you to do is now come up with 5 things that you are going to change about your practice for children with PDA. And I want you to really strongly consider the control elements. 5 things you're going to change about your practice, and you can contact me on all the ways that I've shared with you at the beginning. Thank you very, very much for listening, and I will see you on something else soon, I'm sure.